We have never seen anything like this before. People missed this on stage. There are moments in history when the human spirit reveals itself in ways that leave us breathless, when an ordinary gathering turns into something extraordinary, when a stage designed simply for speeches, music, or ceremony suddenly transforms into the canvas of eternity. And while the crowd is present, while the lights are shining, while the cameras are rolling, not everyone fully perceives what has just unfolded before their very eyes. And that is why people walk away whispering to themselves and to one another, "We have never seen anything like this before." Because in truth, they have witnessed something beyond performance, beyond talent, beyond politics, beyond entertainment, something that pierces through the veil of the ordinary and points us toward the eternal. The scene was set with anticipation, the stage illuminated, thousands gathered with expectation in their hearts, and millions more connected through screens, live streams, and devices. Yet even as the atmosphere buzzed with the ordinary rituals of such an event, there was something different in the air, something that cannot be scripted, something that cannot be rehearsed, something that cannot be engineered by stage lights or sound systems. And while the casual observer thought it was simply another ceremony, those with spiritual sensitivity knew that something sacred was happening. People missed it because they were looking with natural eyes, distracted by the grandeur of the crowd, the presence of well-known figures, the choreography of the stage. But hidden within the visible was an invisible reality, a moment so subtle yet so powerful that only later, when reflection set in, when hearts replayed the words, the gestures, the silence, did the enormity of it begin to sink in. And that is why the phrase echoed across conversations and headlines, "We have never seen anything like this before." What was it then that set this apart? It was not simply the roster of speakers, though presidents and leaders stood there. It was not simply the applause, though waves of appreciation rolled like thunder. It was not simply the tears, though hearts broke in unity. It was something deeper, something that transcended the event itself and pointed to the fragility of life, the certainty of eternity, and the unmistakable call of God in the midst of human drama. When a voice rose on stage, trembling yet steady, declaring that eternity is one heartbeat away, when the testimony of forgiveness rang out even toward the very hand that had caused unthinkable pain, when tears did not only speak of sorrow but of grace, people thought they were watching another memorial, another tribute, another public gathering. Yet what they were truly witnessing was the collision of heaven and earth, the intersection of grief and hope, the demonstration of divine strength in the midst of human weakness, and that is why it shook the conscience of those who were listening closely, while others, distracted, missed the depth of what was happening right before them. In every generation, there are moments when time seems to pause, when the noise of the world is drowned out by the weight of eternity, when the applause of men is silenced by the whisper of God. And this was one of those moments, a sacred interruption in the rhythm of the ordinary, a glimpse into the reality that life is fragile, that death is certain, and that eternity is unavoidable. And in such moments, the human soul is confronted with the question it so often avoids: where will I spend forever? The people on stage were not merely performers or politicians or speakers. They became messengers, conduits of a truth that cannot be silenced. And while some thought they were hearing tributes to a man, they were in fact being reminded of the brevity of life and the urgency of faith. And while some thought they were watching the closing chapter of one person's life, they were actually being invited to consider the opening chapter of their own eternity. What stunned the world was not the size of the crowd, not the presence of dignitaries, not even the shocking events that led to the gathering, but the audacity of grace, the power of forgiveness, the courage to declare in the face of tragedy that vengeance does not belong to man, but to God. that bitterness will not take root, that forgiveness will triumph, and that love is stronger than hatred. And in a culture drowning in anger, division, and revenge, such a declaration was nothing short of revolutionary, something so rare, so countercultural, that indeed people could only say, "We have never seen anything like this before." And yet, as powerful as it was, many missed it. Because human beings are often so consumed with the visible, so distracted by the outward show, that we fail to discern the invisible weight of glory pressing into the moment. And so the words were spoken, the tears were shed, the forgiveness was offered, the eternity was declared. But only those who paused long enough, who opened their hearts wide enough, truly recognized that heaven itself was speaking through broken human voices.
Consider how many times we sit in a crowd, how many times we scroll through a feed, how many times we watch events unfold, and yet we miss the eternal significance because we are too distracted, too skeptical, too hardened. And this is why history repeats its lessons again and again, why prophets rise and their words fall on deaf ears, why miracles occur and they are dismissed as coincidence, why truth is proclaimed and yet mocked or ignored. And still God, in His mercy, continues to reveal Himself in moments like these, offering us glimpses of His kingdom in the most unexpected places. It is almost as if God deliberately chooses the stage of human suffering to reveal His greatest glory. For in weakness, His strength is made perfect. In tragedy, His hope shines brightest. In loss, His promise becomes clearest. And that is why what happened on that stage was not simply a memorial service. It was a proclamation, a divine interruption, a reminder to the living that life is fleeting and eternity is forever. And while the world looked on with fascination, heaven leaned close with purpose. The phrase, "We have never seen anything like this before," should not merely be a commentary on a public event. It should be the confession of every heart that realizes it has witnessed grace, that it has encountered forgiveness, that it has seen faith under fire yet not consumed, that it has observed love triumph over hatred. Because such realities are rare in a broken world, and yet they are the very essence of the gospel. And so what people missed on stage was not just the power of words, but the presence of God Himself breaking through human frailty. And if you listen carefully, you will hear the echo of eternity whispering to you as well, not only about what happened there, but about what is happening here, right now, in your own life. For the truth remains the same. Life is short, death is certain, eternity is near. And the only choice that truly matters is whether you will step into eternity with Christ or without Him, whether you will embrace forgiveness or cling to bitterness, whether you will walk in grace or stumble in anger, whether you will see what God is doing or miss it completely. So my friend, do not miss it, for the stage of life is before you. The spotlight of eternity is already shining, and heaven is watching. Choose today to open your eyes, open your heart, and recognize what so many others overlook. Because when you do, you too will confess with awe and trembling, "I have never seen anything like this before." And yet, as the echo of that unforgettable moment lingers, what becomes clear is that humanity has an extraordinary ability to overlook the divine, even when it unfolds in the most visible places. Because we are creatures easily distracted by the temporary, by the flash of lights, by the appearance of power, by the movement of crowds, and while those things scream for our attention, the still, quiet, unshakable truth of eternity stands silently in the background, waiting for someone to notice, waiting for someone to pause, waiting for someone to say with trembling lips that they have finally seen what is real and eternal and infinitely more valuable than all the applause of the world combined. It is sobering to think that a single phrase of forgiveness, spoken in a voice trembling with both grief and courage, can pierce through the noise of political speeches and the roar of a crowd. And yet that is exactly what happened, because when the words, "I forgive him," echoed from the stage, they carried more power than all the headlines combined. For forgiveness is the language of heaven, and while many missed it, distracted by their own thoughts, others were struck silent, realizing that they had just witnessed a miracle of the human soul choosing grace over vengeance, light over darkness, eternity over the temporary satisfaction of hate. This is why the stage became more than a platform. It became a pulpit, a prophetic moment, an altar built not of stone, but of words, tears, and faith. And just as ancient prophets once stood before nations to declare the word of the Lord, so now this stage, in this time, in this place, became the ground on which heaven touched earth. And while not every ear was tuned to hear, for those who did, life could never be the same again, because they had seen forgiveness embodied, hope proclaimed, eternity unveiled. And it is true, none of us have ever seen anything quite like it before. And still the question hangs heavy in the air. Why do so many miss it? Why do so many watch history unfold, yet remain blind to the hand of God shaping it? Why do so many leave the place of miracle and return unchanged? And the answer, though painful, is simple. Because the human heart grows hard when it clings to pride, when it clings to bitterness, when it refuses to let go of anger, when it insists on holding vengeance in its own hands. And so the miracle passes by unnoticed. The eternal slips through fingers like water, and only later, when the weight of emptiness presses down, do people realize that they missed what mattered most. It is not just about one stage, one event, one gathering. It is about every moment of our lives where eternity brushes against time, where divine whispers reach into human noise, where God reveals himself in ordinary places, and yet people dismiss it as coincidence, as emotion, as theatrics, because to admit otherwise would require a change of heart, a surrender of pride, a willingness to kneel. And that is something our world, intoxicated with self, resists with every ounce of its being. And yet still the voice of eternity calls. Still forgiveness is offered. Still grace is extended. And still heaven waits for us to notice. What people missed on that stage, they continue to miss in their own homes, in their workplaces, in their relationships, because every act of kindness, every moment of undeserved forgiveness, every whisper of conscience, every reminder of mortality is God's way of pulling back the curtain of the temporary and showing us the eternal. And though the world mocks and dismisses, the truth remains unshakable. Eternity is not far off. It is one heartbeat away, one breath away, one step away. And whether you are on a stage before thousands or alone in your bedroom, the reality does not change. For the appointment with eternity cannot be delayed and cannot be ignored. So let the world say we have never seen anything like this before. But let us also remember that such words are not simply a commentary on spectacle. They are an invitation to open our eyes, to finally see what God is showing us, to finally hear what heaven is speaking, to finally receive what grace is offering. Because if we miss it, if we turn away, if we walk on unchanged, then the tragedy is not only that we failed to see something historic, the tragedy is that we failed to recognize the eternal call of God to our own souls.